Now, from CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning, I'm Jim DeFede, and welcome to Facing South Florida. This was another chaotic week for the President Trump, but then again, what week isn't chaotic? But through all the news about porn stars and ethically challenged cabinet secretaries and Trumpian lies about voter fraud, there remains one constant in the president's life: Special Counsel Robert Mueller. The Mueller investigation just keeps on rolling. And this week, a familiar name has reappeared: South Florida's very own Roger Stone. Stone has been an advisor to Donald Trump for decades, long before his run for president. In 2016, though, Stone emerged as a possible link between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was trying to destroy Hillary Clinton by releasing embarrassing emails stolen from both the Democratic National Committee and Clinton campaign boss Roger Podesta. But it is now widely accepted that those emails were stolen by the Russian government and given to WikiLeaks to hurt Hillary Clinton. So the question has always been, did Roger Stone act as a conduit between the Russian-supported WikiLeaks and the Trump campaign? This question caught fire again this week, and we will discuss why with our guest, the man at the center of all this, Roger Stone. Roger, thank you as always for coming in and making the time.
Great to be here.
I know you disagree with some of the things I said in the setup, and
sure.
we'll go through it. But I want to start beginning of the week. At the beginning of the week, the Wall Street Journal published a story that basically had a copy of an email that you had sent to Sam Nunberg, your one-time protege, who we've become very familiar with on cable news, in which you wrote, "I dined with my pal Julian Assange last night." And the Wall Street Journal took off with that and said, "Oh my God, Roger Stone actually had dinner with Julian Assange."
Yeah, it's kind of a classic example of fake news. Actually, the story begins in the Washington Post. They report, strangely enough, that two sources tell them, no corroboration, that I told them that I had flown to London and met with Assange. One of them is very quickly identified as Sam Nunberg. The other one has never been identified. I was a little surprised because, generally speaking, newspapers require some confirmation other than Stone said. In any event, the Wall Street Journal recycles that. Now, the problem with it, of course, is that Nunberg, who's kind of a neurotic guy, would sometimes call you 30, 40 times a day, not with substance, like, "Hey, so what's going on?" When I started letting his calls just roll over to voicemail because I work for a living, he would get very annoyed. One Friday, late in the day, when I was trying to get him off the phone, he said to me, "Well, do you have plans for the weekend?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'll fly to London and dine with Julian Assange." The Washington Post, by the way, gets that quote wrong. It's a throwaway line. And Jim, you know me a long time. It's shtick. There's no truth to it. My passport, the airline records, custom records, the security cameras at the Ecuadorian embassy would all demonstrate that no such meeting ever took place.
Roger, I am more than willing to concede to you. I believe that. I think it's ridiculous, the notion that you flew to London and somehow were sneaked into the Ecuadorian embassy to meet with Julian Assange. I give you that. That email, by the way, was August 4, 2016. One of the things that caught people's attention, and CNN made a big deal out of this, again, I'm not sure why CNN made a big deal out of this next part, was a conversation you had that same day with InfoWars. Let me play what you said to InfoWars.
Yes.
The Clinton campaign narrative that the Russians favor Donald Trump and that the Russians are leaking this information, this is inoculation because, as you said earlier, they know what is coming, and it is devastating. Let's remember that their defense in all of the Clinton Foundation scandals has been, not "we didn't do it," has been, "you have no proof." Yes, but you have no proof. Well, I think Julian Assange has that proof, and I think he's going to furnish it to the American people.
There's two things that jumped out at me with regard to that interview. The first thing was, you were wrong. Right. They never did release, WikiLeaks never did release anything on the Clinton Foundation. They released DNC emails, Podesta emails, but nothing related to the foundation, correct?
Correct. Well, that's actually not totally correct. They released both a budget and a staffing list from the foundation that was
sent. But not the smoking gun that you were expecting.
That was not the focus of the disclosures. First of all, I think people lose sight of the fact that Assange himself goes on CNN in early June to say he's got this catch of documents on Hillary and they're devastating. It's widely widely reported in the press. Now, James Rosen of Fox News had told an associate of mine, Charles Ortel, very fine investigator and financial advisor, that he had a source that told him that the documents pertained to the foundation. That turns out not to be true.
Now, here's the other thing, though. I listened to the entire interview with you and Alex Jones. It runs about an hour. There was something else you said that really caught my attention. So this is on August 4th, 2016. You said during that interview, quote, "I spoke to Donald Trump yesterday."
Yes.
So during this period of time, you were sending out a lot of information about, tweeting out, talking about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Candidate Donald Trump at the time was doing that. My question to you is, in your conversations with Donald Trump, either that day on August 3rd or around that time period, did you ever discuss WikiLeaks with him?
Actually, I never discussed WikiLeaks or the WikiLeaks disclosures with candidate Trump or President Trump.
See, that seems strange. Now, that seems strange to me because it was a preoccupation for both of you.
But in all honesty, if you look at the CNN report, they linked the president saying, hey, Russia, if you have Hillary's emails, release them, with this issue when we're talking about two different sets of emails. Assange and WikiLeaks never have the missing Hillary emails that are erased from her server. That's not what this controversy is about, and they never released them. But that's what Trump is referring to.
Well, but you referred to it as well. So I want to play. So that was August 4th, 2016. August 8th, 2016, you appear before the Southwest Broward Republican Organization.
Yes.
And here's what you tell them.
With regard to the October surprise, what would be your forecast on that, given what Julian Assange has intimated he's going to do?
Well, it could be any number of things. I actually have communicated with Assange. I believe the next tranche of his documents pertain to the Clinton Foundation, but there's no telling what the October surprise may be.
And then 4 days after that, you were on a MAGA podcast, a pro-Donald Trump podcast, and here's what that conversation was like.
I believe Julian Assange, who I think is a hero of fighting the police state, has all of the emails that Huma and Cheryl Mills, the two Clinton aides, thought that they had erased. Now, if there's nothing damning or problematic in those emails, I assure you the Clintonites wouldn't have erased them and taken the public heat for doing so. The point, of course, is that I don't think they are erased. I think Assange has them. I know he has them. And I believe he will expose the American people to this information, in the next 90 days.
So
there's two pieces there. Let's take them one by one, if we may.
Sure, but there are two things there that caught my attention. In that first one, you say, I actually have communicated with Assange. Yes. And in the second one, I know he has them. Yes. I know Julian Assange has them. That sounds like you're getting information from Julian Assange.
Of course, when I turn out to be wrong, I guess that's kind of
and you
problematic.
Do turn out to
it's
be
completely wrong. So let's take it one by one. In front of the Southeast Broward Republican Organization, I say two things. One, that I've communicated with Assange. I refer, as I testified under oath for the House Intelligence Committee, with a confirming source, Randy Credico, who tells me Assange is telling the truth when he goes on CNN and says he's got the goods on Hillary. It's devastating stuff. Credico never refers to the source or the content or the exact timing other than to say it's coming in October. That's the reference to the communication. That's not a direct communications, but a confirming source is something you'd be familiar with as a journalist. You can call him a back channel. You can call him an intermediary.
Well, you used to call him a back channel.
I was giving a speech. I mean, please, I am a bit of a showman, as you may have noticed. But the point here is those are all entirely accurate. As for the speculation that it pertains to the Clinton Foundation, that's based on Rosen's prediction, which I just referenced, turns out to be incorrect. And that MAGA observation, which I say, well, I think they've got the missing emails, turns out to be entirely wrong. So
here's the thing that gets me, Roger. Yes. And I just want to put up real quick, after you testified before the House committee and identified Randy Credico as the confirming source, the back channel, yes. Randy Credico let me put up that statement. There was no back channel to Roger Stone, and I think that his testimony was a lot of bravado. Roger's a showman. And then your attorneys, after you appeared before the House Intelligence Committee, your attorneys wrote, Mr. Stone concedes that describing Credico as a go-between or intermediary is a bit of salesmanship for his InfoWars audience.
But it's not inaccurate. Salesmanship.
But here's the thing.
No, you didn't let me respond to the first one. First of all, I've testified about this under oath. Mr. Credico asserted his Fifth Amendment rights when they.
So you're saying he's wrong?
He's not telling the truth. Why? Because his information comes from one of Assange's lawyers who was talking out of school, and he seeks to protect her. I understand his motive, but I testified under oath. He declined. I'm telling the truth. Unfortunately, he's dissembling. I just want to put button this up so we can move on after this commercial break. But here's what I'm trying to understand. It seems like you ended up trying to portray yourself as having more information than you really did. Essentially, the way I'm trying to understand is either you're just a showman, as Randy Credico says, or a salesman selling a story to the InfoWars crowd, as your attorneys say. And if that's the case, then essentially, haven't you walked yourself into Mueller's crosshairs? Aren't you responsible for being in the position you are now? No, not
for
at all.
being investigated by Mueller?
No, not at all. First of all, it's what you do, not what you say, that's important. You can't go to jail for saying you're going to steal a car. You can only go to jail for stealing a car. In this case,
but you could get investigated for it.
Look, I've been an associate of Donald Trump's for 40 years. I expect to be investigated. In fact, Jim, to be very clear, the New York Times said on January 20th, 2017, that I was the subject to a FISA warrant. They've never retracted that story. I'm going to have to go to federal court to find out why and on what basis I was being looked at. So I operate on the assumption that all my emails, all my texts, all my phone calls have already been monitored.
All right, let's take a break here. We'll come back. We'll talk more. We're here with Roger Stone when we come back.